In this video, I'm going to teach you how to import and modify images. We're going to begin by opening an image, and I'm going to show you how to import it within Photoshop. And then I'm going to teach you a couple of tools used to modify. So let's just begin. If you have not done so already, you can just go to File and hit Open and browse to the image that you want to create. I've already got mine up here, so I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Now, once you open an image, you can see this is opened as a JPEG. And so a couple of things I'd like for you to notice. The first is that the image comes in as a background layer, which means that Photoshop isn't going to let us manipulate it at all after we've opened it. So what we have to do is first begin by selecting the entire image. You can do it like this, or you can hit Control A. But this is called the rectangular marquee here that I use. So I've selected everything. And then I'm going to right click on my mouse and do layer via cut. And when I do this, I want you to look at the layer list over here. So when I do layer via cut, what happens is it takes that layer off of the background layer and puts it on a new one. Now I'm going to right click here and see if I can rename this layer. Okay, let's see. All right, let me double click on it to rename it. And we're going to call this Dining Pod. Okay, now that we have this dining pod here selected, there's a couple of things that we're going to need to do to modify it so that it's ready to be brought into a digital rendering later. The first is that I'm going to pull all of this white background off. And so the first thing I'm going to do is hit this magic wand tool over here. Now, the magic wand tool works by distinguishing the differences in the pixels. And you can see here, this tolerance is set to a default of 32, and usually that works just fine for us. But what this is actually indicating is it's going to separate any colors that are more than 32 units of contrast away from each other. So just take a look and see what happens. So you can see here that just by clicking outside of there, it's now noticing that there's a difference in the line here and the line here. And now you can see why I spent so much time darkening that edge so much so that I would get this nice contrast later on. So once I have that, I'm going to hit Control X, which is cut. And now I've cut all that background out. You can see there's still a little bit more over here. And if I use my magic wand tool and click again and hit X, you can see it comes out even more. Now, you don't want to overly process an image too much. But if you still have some little extras that are kind of hanging out, you could go over to the eraser button here. And you can see here, it'll present an extra ribbon over here, but we can just click on it and it'll be right there. Now you can see once you hit the erase tool, you can see your commands change up here. If I click on this drop down, I can increase the size of my eraser tool and see, look, as I increase the size from 4 to 21 pixels, look how big it is. I can make it even bigger here. Okay, and see it gets big. So if I just click, I can get rid of some of the extras there. Now, if for some reason I accidentally had clicked back to the background layer, it's not going to pick up anything because there's nothing to erase on the background layer. So I have to be selected on the layer that I want to work on. You can see here, there's a little edge right there that could be pulled off. Okay, so there's our Photoshop image with the background removed, and that's working well. We're not going to mess with it too much, but I do want to draw your attention to a couple of other commands here. The first one is the transform command. And so if I hit Control T, you can see that I now have some grips here that I can adjust. And the transform tool is going to become really important later on when we try to size this. But for right now, you can see if I grab one of the corners, I don't have to hold anything down like I did in InDesign to keep the proportions the same, but I can stretch this out any way that I want here. If I move my arrow up here, you can see it's basically just panning. It's moving the entire image up and down. You can see if I hold down my control button and move up there, then I can start to distort this. And when I let go, if I hit the enter button, all of the changes I make will become active. Now, that command that we just saw, that's really helpful if we have to start to distort things to a vanishing point later on. But let's say I want to go back because I don't want to do that command. I can hit Control Z, or if I go to my window toolbar, I can drop down to history here and I can reveal the history. This is everything I've done since I opened Photoshop. And so if I wanted to go backwards from that free transform here, I can go back one command and it'll look like it did before. A couple of other things I want to do to prepare this image is I want to go ahead and pull out a couple more of these kind of open spots back here. Again, just so that I can get some transparency happening. And that's kind of a unique feature. You can see it's pulling a lot of the bright whites that are coming out. And this is going to help me so that when I overlay this to our dining room later on, I'll be able to see some of the elements that are in the background. So again, I'm just clicking and hitting Control X to delete. Okay. And I may come up here as well. Okay, so the other command that I want you to be aware of is the opacity tool. Now, we're going to use this kind of in a lot of different ways throughout, just to kind of balance between our hybrid and our, our digital and our hand-drawn components of our rendering. But it's right over here. And I want you to see if I click here and I adjust the opacity here, I can either enter it in manually, say take it to 50%, or I can adjust it on using the slide ruler too. So I'm not exactly sure how much opacity I want to pull out from this quite yet. I won't really know until I see it on top of my dining room. But for right now, I can start to pull back just a little bit to get kind of tone down some of the contrast just a little bit. And then once I overlay this onto our dining room arrangement later, I'll be able to see the dining room behind it. So there's a lot of other commands that you can use to modify an image, and we won't really know all the commands that we can do to this until we see this within our hybrid rendering once we've applied it to our digital elements. But for now, at least, you know how to open or import an image. We can use those terms interchangeably. You know how to select it all using the rectangular marquee tool and do a layer via cut to pull it off of the background. You also know how to transform this image. And you also know how to erase the pixels using the magic wand tool and the eraser. One last thing you can do if you want to is you can see this eyeball here. You can turn it on and off to hide and reveal layers. But for right now, we're going to leave it on and we are going to hit the save button. And then this will be ready to be incorporated into our digital rendering.